On weigh-in this morning, what a week for Robbie Patterson. The Arrowfield and the Taranaki Breeders, he's with us live. She looked back to her best. Via Sistina grits it out in the Turnbull, adding another Group 1 to her resume. And NZTR Chairman Russell Warwick is in studio after the resignation of Bruce Sharrock. Morena to you, a very good morning to you on your Sunday here on Weigh-In. Yes, indeed, all of that to bring you today. Of course, we look back to the Arrowfield during the week and so much other Australian racing as well from around the traps yesterday. Jayne Ivil with me this morning. Jane, morning to you. There's a lot to unpack from the week. I'm not quite sure really where to start.
Good morning to you too. Good morning to our viewers on this Sunday morning. A fantastic week of racing. It's not often that you see Group 1 racing during the week, unfortunate circumstances, but what we have seen is some wonderful performances on the track, and I guess not just from the equine variety, but the human too. And you mentioned Robbie Patterson, what a wonderful week for him and his stables and the connection. So it's fantastic that we're going to be able to chat to him this morning. Yeah, too right. Some of the stats that Jane will bring up shortly are pretty magnificent for Robbie Patterson so far this season and last season as well. But we'll chat to him shortly. First of all, let's take you back to yesterday and the Taranaki Breeders, won by Robbie Patterson and the Hottie.
We're ready. Hokitikabella scratching the Grange Williams Star Taranaki Breeders Stakes Group 3. Set to go, ready and racing. Little slow to go was the Hottie. Sumi goes back early. It has to contribute. The Hottie is chiming in. Back behind them, just as dramatic, and then Sumi and Pride of Aspen. Town Cry joined by the Hottie. Wessex fighting on between them. A little between the three further back. Lippy running on. The Hottie moved up, takes the lead. What a week for the Burt Canary and Black. The Hottie has won it. The Hottie will take the Breeders. Photos the Miners, Town Cry, Liffey and Wessex. Oh, they strike again. That's the Hottie, Group 3 on what's been a Group 1 week for the Canary and Black, and this unbelievable role just keeps on keeping on.
I thought if we get a win a day would sort of top the week off, all right, but you to get a Group 3, and this is a cool race to win for us, like being Taranaki kids, and yeah, it's fantastic. She's just a really good horse, and when she's right, you know, she's lethal.
What's in the water? You know, your team is just absolutely flying, right?
Oh, it'll be Tui tonight, I tell you, mate.
Yeah, it was sort of panned out really well. She didn't jump that great, but from that, having the inside barrier draw, she was able to recover really quickly, and she travelled sweetly throughout the run, and I knew when I come around the corner I was pretty much home.
Yeah, what a week for Robbie Patterson, and those colours as well of Eddie and Nicola Burke and Ellen Piercy too. Well, we are very lucky to be joined here on Weigh-In by Robbie Patterson, and he's got a pretty special guest with him too, in One Bold Cat, of course, the Arrowfield winner during the week. We'll talk about that a little bit more shortly, Robbie, but first of all, the Hottie winning and capping off what was a pretty incredible week for you. You said you were going to have some tui. How were the celebrations?
Yeah, no, g'day guys. It was fantastic. Winning with the Hottie, she's been a bit of an enigma for me for a long time. She's given me a lot of grief, and to get a group win with her is just fantastic.
You mentioned, Robbie, that she's a horse that's always caused you a little bit of a headache. But look, in terms of being able to do what she did first up yesterday, quite incredible, given that she was on the sidelines having had a bleeding attack in her previous start. Just talk us through what it's been like with a horse like her. 6 years old, you've been really patient.
Yeah, no, like bled down at Riccarton last time, and we sort of got back, and she had her 3 months in the paddock, and I haven't done it a lot with her. She always goes real good fresh, so I was sort of relying on that a little bit, and just gave her a very quiet trial on Tuesday, and that's all she's done. She's just a horse that has got oodles of ability, and in that fresh state, she can be quite dangerous.
What were you thinking as the race unfolded with her? I know she was a little bit slow out of the barrier, but recovered quite nicely, and Courtney Barnes gave her a beautiful trip in transit.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, Courtney, she just snuck up to a nice spot, and no, I was pretty confident at the 600 when she was there, because I know how much she can finish them off, and I was pretty confident a long way up.
How do you assess her ability, Robbie, in terms of taking that next step to even Group 2 or even Group 1 level?
Well, I've never thought she was a Group 1 horse or anything like that, but hey, Town Cry has proved that she is, and in the past, and if she keeps doing that, well, we're going to have a shot at it.
I think one of the key things about both your results yesterday and your results through the week with One Bold Cat was that there was certain colours that we saw from the Burke family. Tell us a little bit about that relationship and the association that you have.
Yeah, well, Eddie's got a 120 odd acres just out of Waitara, about 20 k's from here, which I live on, and I run the place, and I've got cattle on there as well, and a lot of spellers. So, like this guy, I've had him since day one, and so we do a lot.
What about, let's take you back to during the weekend, Matamata and the boy next to you, One Bold Cat. I think you were more confident around his chances in the Livermore, but then he goes and does that in the Arrowfield. Did that surprise you for starters, and how pleasing was that you could get that and now you head on to what was your bigger target?
Yeah, no, fantastic at the Livermore. I wasn't expecting it. I thought if he could run fourth, I would have been stoked. To get that was fantastic. Hence why Grillsy was on Punchura. We thought he may have been a better chance over a mile, and Ryan jumped on, and Ryan's got to keep the ride. Pretty tough to take a Group 1 winning rider off. So, we're looking really forward to next Saturday.
In terms of this horse's development, tell us a little bit about the journey that you've been on with him.
So I just couldn't hear his bloody hosing down outside here. What was that, sorry?
Just tell us a little bit about the journey that you've been on with the horse.
Oh, One Bold Cat. Yeah, no, he's been a cool horse. Harry's his nickname. He's a real character, and his stablemate beside us here is Mary Louise, and they've been buddies forever, and he's just an absolute pleasure to do anything with. So
he's going to head to the Livermore in 7 days' time. Tell us about what you've decided to do with Punchura.
Well, he's down the paddock for a couple of weeks. To me, he's probably getting towards the end of his racing career. But we may, I've got to have a real good talk with the owner, and we may freshen him up and have another go. But if he carries on that vein of form, we love the horse too much to be just running around for the sake of it. So, he may have another little quick go again, or he could be retired.
Putting the success aside of your horses over the last 7 days, I wanted to talk about your career specifically. If we look back sort of 7-8 years ago, you were training single-figure winners, and your strike rate wasn't looking as good as what it does at the moment. You had your best season last season, 2.5 million in stakes, and 2.3 million in stakes, and a strike rate of around 1 in 5. Tell us a little bit about what the last 8 years has been like and how your business has grown to where it is now.
Yeah, well, I joined up with Eddie really probably about that time, and it's been a big asset. He's got a lovely property, big asset. Just not his horses. I've been able to take my other horses I've got out there, and they do really well. And then I got a horse called Coventine Bay. Well, that sort of everything has skyrocketed since then, and I was sort of probably mucking around with 15 horses, and now I've got 40 in the barns here, and a few at the farm that I bring in every day, and I've got a few at the pre-trainers. So yeah, it's just a bit of success. It's breed success really, and I owe a lot to Eddie and Coventine Bay.
Well, you've started the season off really well here again in New Zealand. Do you set yourself goals and targets, or is it just a matter of trying to go a little bit better each season?
Yeah, I just like to go a bit better each season. Winning Group 1 races, winning that Group 1 the other day was pretty special, and if I could replicate last season, hey, I'd be happy with that. Like, we got a Group 1 last season, we got a Group 1 this season, and we had a Wellington Cup, and so if we just replicate that, I would be happy, and hey, we've ticked one box with Group 1 so far.
Does the change around the Livermore venue, does that change anything at all for you and for One Bold Cat?
Oh, it aids our advantage. If we've got one, it's 6 hours to Hawke's Bay for us, and I always go on the day. So Taranga's only three and a half up the road for us, and our horses seem to run well at Taranga. So to me, it's an advantage for me for it changing, yeah. But just very disappointing for Hawke's Bay. I know how much effort they've put in, and yeah, it's just sad we're not racing there. And but I'm sure they'll get their stuff right together, and we'll be back there next year. But no, I'm looking forward to Taranaki next week.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to seeing you and the lad next to you go around again, Robbie. Thank you very much for jumping on early with us this morning after the week that you've had, and best of luck in, 6 days' time?
Lovely. Thank you, guys.
Good stuff. Robbie Patterson there, who, as you said, has had not only a great week, Jane, but just a fantastic season this season so far. I think his strike rate is around 4.7 this season, and you mentioned the numbers last season, just superb.
Well, I think the star of the show there was One Bold Cat, wasn't it? It's always nice to have the equine athlete on the show as well, and what a dude, just standing in the box, taking it all in. But look, as we did reflect on, Robbie's a young trainer in the Central Districts, really made a name for himself over the last couple of years, and he's just built year on year in terms of his results. So as he said, to have already picked up a Group 1 so early in the season, this season ticks a box for him, but he's got some nice ammo in the stable, and hopefully the team will be able to go on with it. But the one Bold Cat, certainly a horse that's going to appreciate getting out to 2,000 metres next Saturday, and you know, third up, he's probably going to be right on the mark for a race like the Livermore.
Yeah, and just again, congratulations to the Burks and Alan Pearcey as well. They not only won those two races, but they also won the last on the card at Hawera as well yesterday. So not only was it a great week for Robbie Patterson, but it was a really, really good week for them. So well done to you guys. We're going to take a quick break here on Weigh-In. When we come back, we'll look at the Hawke's Bay Guineas, and there was a bit of drama at the start.
Hawke's Bay Guineas at Group 2 level, always a good pointer for the rest of the 3-year-old season. We are set for a start. Ready, ooh, bit of a, now well, captured by Love, missed it by 6 lengths. Just as the gates open, the favourite, I reckon, has done its chips at the start. Now, let's just watch the start. She went up in the air, captured by Love. She's come out 6 lengths behind them. She has finished a neck off whatever's won the race.
Tamari, great to have you with us here on Weigh-In. Fantastic to hear from Robbie Patterson, get his thoughts all throughout the week. But we do want to talk a little bit more about what unfolded, particularly out of the Taranaki Breeders yesterday, Jane, and also the Egmont Cup as well. Starting with the Taranaki Breeders, of course, we've spoken about the Hottie, but what else do you take out of this race? Well,
look, we did mention that the Hottie was a little bit slow away, but recovered into a beautiful position, and it was quite dominant. I thought Courtney Barnes was really interesting, saying she thought she had the race won quite a way out. The comments from Royden Burgesson pre-race around Town Cry were really interesting. He did say that he didn't think the horse was in the same position as what she was 12 months ago when she took out the race. I thought she was pretty brave leading them up and holding on nicely. Plenty of merit in the run of Wessex. I actually thought the eye catcher was Liffey, who ran into fourth from a long way off them.
Well, let's hear from the beaten jockeys now out of the Taranaki Breeders Stakes.
I was really happy with her. She's still got quite a bit of improvement in her, and I know Royden's got some big plans for her this season, so yeah, we were happy with her run.
She's run a really nice race. She's jumped out, and it's ended up just being perfectly for her with Town Crier leading. She's relaxed beautifully in the running, and I thought I might have nailed Kelly on the post, but she dug deep and she ran a really good race.
I thought she went really great. She got back from a wide draw. I just followed Sumi all the way, and the last 50 she just flew home. I actually thought she got up and run second.
Look, I still thought it was quite a good run. We were a little bit slow away, unfortunately. I just really needed something to take me into the race, and they just weren't really pulling me into it at the right time. Left me a little flat-footed, but I thought it was quite a good run today. I think she'll improve out of that.
Yeah, look, 14 is probably just a bit on the pointy side. They didn't go as quick as I thought they would, and we got caught for boot, but she'll improve a ton.
Well, that was the beaten jockeys out of the Taranaki Breeders Stakes. Let's move along to the Egmont Cup, won by Sacred Pearl, ahead of Battle Secret, Wheel It In and Can He Rock. Jane, Sacred Pearl, Harry Grace, we just saw him in the beaten jockeys there, gets his first win in New Zealand.
Yeah, fantastic to see that result for Harry Grace, who's obviously over here with his association with the Maddie Raymond Train Rolls, hoping to get a run in the Livermore on Saturday. But look, it was a nice ride on his behalf. The speed was definitely on, so it certainly set up horses to come off the pace, and there were some really nice runs in behind. But great ride, Harry Grace. Nice performance by Sacred Pearl for the Lisa Ladder camp. And look, I thought a couple of horses, Old J and even Canny Rock, were pretty good, making up ground from the back of the field.
I was about to say, I thought Canny Rock was excellent, finishing fourth there. Interesting round, Sacred Pearl, nominated for the New Zealand Cup, but Lisa Ladder doesn't seem overly committed to it.
Look, I thought her comments post-race were really interesting regarding the horse. Obviously, things had gone wrong in the start before, but winning a race can give horses a little bit of confidence, and I think her comments were that hopefully the horse can go on with it now and find a patch of form. So it will be really interesting to see what decision she makes with the horse going forward.
Well, let's take you across to the east coast of the North Island now, and of course Tauranga, where we had the Open Handicap there. That was won by Mustang Valley, perhaps unsurprisingly, considering it was a heavy track. She was the class horse of the race, beating Ladies Man, who I thought was pretty good, Chattahoochee and Electric Time. The big news out of this, though, Jane, obviously, Mustang Valley had a bleed and is now out for 3 months.
Yeah, a little bit to take out of the race. I guess class rose to the top, didn't it, with Mustang Valley successful and Ladies Man finishing into second position. Beautiful ride by Donovan Manzor, and we need to touch on that because he's a jockey that's been off the scene for quite some time due to a really bad injury. I think he rode the horse picture perfect and was able to get the job done really nicely. So a lovely moment for him to get his first win back. The unfortunate news out of the race, obviously, around Mustang Valley and the fact that she suffered EIPH, which means that she now has a mandatory stand down from racing. We won't see her go into the Livermore. So look, I think really tough for Connections, given that she's had a bit of a difficult preparation in terms of her racing with meetings abandoned and whatnot. She's had to go back to the trials, and to be able to get a win at Tauranga yesterday and to do it in the manner that she did, they probably thought that they were back on track. So really disappointing for the Connections, disappointing for Andrew Forsman.
Yeah, too right. Well, that was yesterday's racing. We did mention before the break that we're going to talk the Hawke's Bay Guineas, which we'll do shortly, but let's take you back to Matamata on Wednesday, and we talked about One Bold Cat in the Arrowfield. What else caught your eye out of... we are going to, excuse me, we're going to go to the Hawke's Bay Guineas first. We saw the drama at the gates there, and I'm sure we'll unpack that a little bit more. Savagely also was sideways out of the gates as well, and I thought to be able to win this race, considering what happened at the start, was a big effort by him.
Look, there was plenty going on at the beginning of the race. Captured by Love, fractious in the barrier, attempted to rear it and lost several lengths. Savagely was pretty awkwardly away, made contact to Whiskey and Roses, who lost ground at the start as well, so there's a little bit going on. Tarik Mac 2 was another one that raced pretty keenly on several occasions early in the race and caused a little bit of disruption as well, so it was a little bit messier in those middle stages. Savagely obviously raced wide with no cover and was able to wear down the leaders. He probably put the writing on the wall with his run at Hawke's Bay 3 weeks ago. He looked like the horse to beat in the race, and he was able to get the job done. Really nice to see him step up to the 1400 metres with success, and I guess they'll now look ahead to a 2000 Guineas with him. Captured by Love was the story of the race, though, given what she was able to do, having lost so many lengths at the start. I think she ran the third fastest last 600 of the day at Matamata and the second fastest last 200. The only other horses that were quicker than her were the other two Te Akau runners in Wild Night and What You Wish For, obviously in separate races. But look, she was the eye catcher, now an equal favourite for the 1000 Guineas alongside Alabama Lass, but she also holds a nomination for the 2000 Guineas, and she's shortened in that market too. So it'll be really interesting to see what Connections do with her when they head to Riccarton. It's been a really interesting race, the Hawke's Bay Guineas, I guess, over the last 10 years. That it's been quite a key leader into the 2000 Guineas. We've seen Turn Me Loose, Madison County, Catalyst, Aegon and Pierre all win a Hawke's Bay Guineas on their way to winning a 2000 Guineas. So, look, there's still, I guess, a little bit to water to go under the bridge before we get to a 2,000 guineas, but hopefully it will be one of the key guides leading into the race.
I just want to touch on Captured by Love a little bit more. Everyone saw it and everyone knew that if she thinks that if she had have got the run, that jumped properly and got the run, etc., she probably wins that race. Yes, you talk about the 1,000 guineas, but man, the way that she raced there and the way that she picked up ground, there must be some big races in their targets now. Look,
she's got a great turn of foot, there's no doubt about that, but she is a filly at this point in time that is doing a few things wrong. We saw her at Hawke's Bay prior to the Gold Trail, have a little bit of a buck on the way to the start with Opie Bosson, obviously some issues in the barrier at Matamata on Wednesday, and I think because she went up in the air, the attendant in the barrier did have hold of her when the gates opened, but because she landed in a dividend-bearing position, she was not considered a late scratching. But she's probably just got a few little things to iron out before you can suggest that she's going to be winning at the top level. I think all the abilities there. It's just a matter of things going right for her and her doing things right. Really keen to find out where they're going to land with her in terms of which race she'll run in down at Riccarton. But look, she's a filly that I think is going to relish a mile, and I know that a lot of people have now sort of got a mark next to her in terms of taking that next step.
Let's also touch on the Group 1 from Wednesday. We talked about One Bold Cat. Everyone was talking about Skew Whiff in the lead up to the race. Finished second, still not a bad race at all, and decent ride by Opie. Matt Scott into third. What else can we take out of this race? Maybe Molt Time, only finishing, less than 2 lengths off the winner. Didn't get the best run in transit, but still finished off pretty well. What can we take out of this leading ahead to the Livermore?
Look, it was an interesting race given the sectionals. It didn't look like they were going along that hard in front. It was pretty even for about the first sort of 2 furlongs, but we did see horses like El Vincent or St Bathans, Spoden, Faragaloni, Pintura. All those horses that sat on the speed, they did capitulate, which did set up for the horses coming from behind, horses like One Bold Cat, who did settle towards the rear of the field. Look, he tracked into the race behind Hayo Sassbomb and got the split at the top of the straight, so a perfect job by Ryan Elliott to win. I also thought the losing ride on Skew Whiff of Opie Bosson was outstanding considering the barrier draw. He sat in behind the speed. I guess if you were being really critical, she was probably left in front a little bit too soon, given that she probably doesn't, in my opinion, run out a really strong mile. I think she's probably a better 1,400 metre horse, but look, Opie gave her a beautiful run in transit from the draw. Molt Time missed the start, slow away, restricted room in the home straight, certainly a horse you'd look towards in the Livermore, getting out to 2,000 metres, but I think there's some questions on a few horses out of that race moving forward in terms of, where they've finished in running.
Alrighty, well that wraps up everything from New Zealand for the week. We've got all the Australian stuff still to come with Britt Taylor out of Australia. We'll catch up with her shortly, and later on, don't forget, we are catching up with the chairman of New Zealand Thoroughbred Racing after the resignation of Chief Executive Bruce Sharrock during the week. Still plenty to come on Way, and stick around.
Yeah, look, it's obviously a sad time because Bruce has been very much instrumental in a lot of the improvements and the changes that have been initiated at NZTR in recent years, and he's built a very, very good team of people around him, and but he's come to a stage where he sort of said he's got other things in life that he still wants to do and achieve. He had his own business, and we wish Bruce every success where he goes, and the good thing is we've still got him for another 3 months in the role, and he'll continue to do some of the consultancy work of the projects which he's been a big part of over the last 12 or 18 months.
Light is on, we're ready to go on the tab, Epsom. Stand by for a start, and we're ready. Here we go. Racing. And Berkshire Shadow is last out. Chaya Wolf wasn't great out. It's going to settle in the second half of a punch field. and Tom Kitten's wide. Right behind him is the favourite, Chaya Wolf, pulling to the outside. Major Bill comes up the rise in front from Royal Patronage, Kintyre, then Arctic Glamour. Further back to My Oberon, Kovalika's looking for a gap. Got shut out there. Racing to a narrow lead as Royal Patronage. Now the favourite's coming, Chaya Wolf. Right down the outside, Tom Kitten tries to go with him, but Chaya Wolf with the wind in his sails draws away for a big win in the Epsom, beating Tom Kitten. Photo third, Royal Patronage and Kovalika.
Big win, best horse in the race. Chad Schofield and Joe Pride combined to win the Epsom. It is Joe's second Epsom, and it's his fourth big Randwick mile. 2 Epsoms to go with 2 Doncasters. And Chad Schofield wins his 5th career Group 1 on a serious racehorse. We still don't know how good he is.
This is a very special horse, big engine, and he's really exciting. I've been in love with him for a long time, so I just want to savour that because I think it's a really special win for a horse on the rise. But this horse is on his way somewhere pretty special, and these guys, it's a fantastic journey they're on.
Very good horse, Brown. He showed a blistering turn of foot. As soon as I clicked him into gear at the top of the straight, he just dropped and went bang, and I knew I was the winner immediately.
Yeah, he was pretty darn good, all right. Chaya Wolf on a big day of Australian racing, both there at Randwick and also at Flemington as well. This is now where we bring in Britt Taylor from across the ditch. Britt, thank you very much for getting up very early again for us from Western Australia. Great to have you with us. Let's start there with the Epsom and Chaya Wolf, and we heard from Joseph Pride, we heard from Chad Schofield as well, we heard from pretty much everyone saying how good this horse is. Chad Schofield saying when he clicked him up, he knew he was on the winner. How good is this horse? How good can it be?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? I think he's really untapped so far. I think there's still so much in him that a lot of us probably they haven't got to the bottom of him, you know. But yesterday, what we saw, I thought Chad Schofield articulated that well. When he asked him to go, he just dropped a gear. You saw how dominantly he was actually able to win there. So he's there just coming around the corner with Tom Kitten, who I thought was also very brave. Early in the race, Tommy was just really looking for a back to follow, manages to get the back of My Oberon, thought very brave to the line. But Tom Kitten's running gamely here and just could not match motors with Chaya Wolf in the finish. Just exploding here. I thought the horse that ran third, Royal Patronage, has been a horse that I've been really keen to follow since coming to Australia. And I thought he was brave. He had to do a little bit of work to get outside the leader. And it probably just told late, but all credit to Chaya Wolf, and what an incredible performance, and great scenes for Chad Schofield as well. 10 years since his last Australian Group 1. Obviously, he spent 7 years over in Hong Kong, and great to cement himself back in the Group 1 riding ranks.
There's no doubt we were all pretty proud over here, Britt. Chaya Wolf, bred by Brendan and Joe Lindsay of Cambridge Stud, was sold at the New Zealand Bloodstock Ready to Run sales. We did have to watch him last year settle for runner-up a couple of times in behind Riff Rocket at Group 1 level. So wonderful to see him pick up his first Group 1 in Australia. I thought that the comments from Joe Pride were really interesting post-race. Given he's a son of Tavistock, he's going to keep improving. Probably best distance range somewhere between 2,000 and 2,400 metres. What would you be doing with the horse now? He holds nominations for both a Cox Plate and a Caulfield Cup.
Well, listening to what they're saying about him, he said he could back up next week into the Hill Stakes, so we might even see him pretty soon. So, yeah, very curious to see. And they're potentially even thinking of King Charles from yesterday, what Joe said post-race about Chaya Wolf.
There's a horse that I was watching keenly, and that was Kovalika, because, of course, James McDonald going for his 100th Group 1 win. And I've got to be honest, at about the 400 or 300 metre mark, I really thought Kovalika was a great chance there. I mean, still a good run to finish fourth after being nudged out a little bit. What do they do with that runner?
Oh, well, I think that's exactly right. I think especially from a New Zealand interest, Australian interest as well, everyone was really focused on that storyline. It got a lot of headway. When will James ride his 100th Group 1 winner? And obviously we'll touch on the flight stakes a little bit later in the scratching there, but this was then his chance, Kovalika, in the Epsom. But what we then saw was that all of a sudden getting chopped out there, and it wasn't to be, but I thought a brilliant run nonetheless. But I think it sets up quite nicely. You don't hope that he doesn't get it yesterday, but I think it sets up really nicely for next week in broadsiding.
Yeah, it really does. You did right about that. You mentioned the flight stakes, won by Lady Shenandoah, and man, that looked pretty effortless.
She was just winning from so far out. When you look at the way she tracks into the race, she just travelled so strongly into the event. You look at the opposition and they're all trying to go with her and they just can't. She's a serious horse. I think obviously the race was impacted by the unfortunate news that 24 hours earlier the short price favourite in Autumn Glow was out. It pulled up sore from a bit of work and needs to have a bit of a tidy up with a bone chip. We'll come back for the autumn, but Chris Waller does what Chris Waller does, and that's just goes, yeah, we've got a stablemate to Steph in there. Do you know, she was nominated for the trials the day before, so there was every chance she didn't even go to the Group 1, and here she is a Group 1 winner. It's incredible.
Look, in terms of Chris Waller, his record speaks for himself. There were 4 Group 1s in Australia yesterday. He managed to pick up 3 of those as a trainer. But let's just touch on Zach Lloyd and obviously the trajectory that he's on. I thought he gave this horse an absolute brilliant ride from the barrier straight into the 1-1, and it was pretty push button.
I think he's our future star. He is the star apprentice, and it took him a long time to get that first Group 1, remembering it coming up in the Queensland winter, probably longer than we thought, given how well he does ride. And now I think it's just going to keep happening for him. Not only that race yesterday, but he went very, very close a little bit later on in the day to making it a Group 1 double. So he's a star, Zach Lloyd, and he conducts himself really nicely as well. Obviously, under the Godolphin operation, you can hear the way he talks. It sounds very much like a model of a James Cummings. You know, they speak so well. He speaks with real poise, and I think he's a very impressive young man.
Well, you spoke about Zach Lloyd. Let's move along to the Metropolitan, and a massive day for Rhys Jones getting a maiden Group 1 win on Land Legend. What can you tell us about Rhys?
Oh, how wonderful this was. He's had to wait his turn. He's gone through and watched a lot of his counterparts ride their first Group 1, and it hadn't happened for him yet. But gee, during this race, when he asked this horse to go from the 600, I would have been fairly critical to think that, gee, I'm a massive chance here. Until about this point, when all of a sudden Zardozi was actually going with him and made a real race of it. The big talking point out of the race was that those 2 horses came together on the corner and there was interference. And so a protest was lodged, and there you have, I just can't imagine that feeling. You've just ridden your first Group 1, you're trying to be really happy about it, and then all of a sudden you hear the protest siren go off, and off you are sitting in the room trying to hold on to your Group 1. I was very glad to see it dismissed.
Yeah, look, a terrific result in the end. Talking specifically about Land Legend, Britt, spent 10 months off the scene, was only his 3rd run back at this preparation, and when you watched him throughout the running, still just hasn't quite learned to settle in his races either. He was tugging on the bridle and he almost pulled Rhys into the race. In terms of the improvement that he'll make out of the race, he looks like a horse that we can probably follow.
100% hit the nail on the head there. When you watch him in isolation, when he's running, he's getting right up on the bridle. And I think Rhys tried to hold him together for as long as he could. And he might have even needed to press the button just a little bit earlier. You know, we hear often the jocks say, count to 10. But I don't think he could hold him together for much longer. And he actually said go before the 600. So the horse has made a big, long, sustained sort of run to be able to get around them. And had to have that brush there with Zardozi. I thought, brilliant run.
Zardozi, she had a tough run in transit, so she was pretty brave in the finish. I'm keen on your thoughts around Unusual Legacy, who was obviously making a significant step up in class yesterday in the Metropolitan, and also Trust in You, the Kiwi horse out of the Bruce Wallace and Grant Cooksley stable, who finished into 4th. It was an improved run from him over there as well.
Yeah, it was, and as you said with the first one, a big step up in class. So we're talking about, you know, massive field here, and yeah, I thought great runs to be able to run into 4th. You must be very proud to see that in such a big race, and yeah, a wonderful performance there.
I thought Unusual Legacy was really the horse to watch out of that race. Got pushed 3 wide at about the 1200, I think. Had to run 3 wide for a lot of it, and then got nudged out in the straight as well, and still finished on for 3rd. It was a really, really good run.
Well, the jockey's comments to Jay Ford post-race around Unusual Legacy was interesting too, because the horse became quite unbalanced at the point of the turn, that he actually thought that when the horse picked himself up again, his last furlong was particularly good, and he was very strong through the line. So certainly a horse that I think can measure up at that level going forward.
Let's take you to Melbourne and the Turnbull, where we've got a little bit of a package to play for you around the winner, Via Sistina.
We're just about there for the Group 1 Tab Turnbull Stakes. Ready and away. Towards the back, Via Sistina early with also Banker's Choice. Via Sistina very wide, and Buckaroo is winding up too. Duke de Sessa at the 200 metres, and Elias there stride for stride. Here's Buckaroo right down the outside with Via Sistina. Duke de Sessa kicking. Via Sistina and Buckaroo are coming together. Buckaroo and Via Sistina. Via Sistina and Buckaroo. Via Sistina. A terrific win, beat Buckaroo. Via Sistina. Damien Lane with another perler.
Chris Waller's ownership, his stranglehold over the Turnbull continues. 6 of the last 10, and his mighty mares Winks twice, very elegant in 2020, and now Via Sistina is part of that group that have dominated this race for one of our iconic trainers. And Via Sistina joins some of the great mares like Mackay Diva and Let's Elope to win the Turnbull, and then perhaps set themselves up for greater glory throughout the Melbourne Spring.
Yeah, she's obviously was the class horse in the field, and I rode her accordingly, and she was just really solid through the line. So, yeah, classy mare.
So fantastic for the whole team. Everyone, you know, when you go into a race at $1.80 to Group 1 level and you fail, there's a lot of hard sleeps over the next few weeks. To bring her back here and to perform like that, it's pretty special for everyone involved with her.
Via Sistina there winning the Turnbull, and we heard from Damien Lane there, Britt. I thought an interesting comment out of him was around the fact that she didn't really like the ground as much as she might in other races and on a better surface. If she can win races like that, coming off the speed and holding on ground that she doesn't overly like, what does that say about those big spring races that were also mentioned?
Yeah, that makes it, she's very, very exciting going forward on top of the ground, that is for sure. That was so much of the talking point at Flemington about going into the race when there was a downpour. So earlier on in the meeting, there'd been a really big band of rain that had come through. In fact, they were delayed because of lightning to put everything a race back. So that was the question mark, because we saw her fail last start on a rain-affected surface. And isn't it a lesson of just never writing off one bad run? There was so many question marks. The price probably reflected that, of going into the race. But, gee, and for Laney to say that she still wasn't, you know, perfectly happy on that kind of surface, and to put in the performance that she did, very, very exciting coming up to our spring features.
When she's been good, Britt, she's been particularly good. It was her 3rd Group 1 victory since she landed in Australia. The 2 occasions where she hasn't been so good has been when Pride of Jenny has been in the race and has obviously put a bit of pressure on those horses behind, given the sectionals that she can run. I'd really like your perspective regarding the horse, because I thought the comments Damien Lane made were really interesting. He said she's a big striding mare. She doesn't necessarily accelerate, but her stride really lengthens. I think he gave her the perfect trip in transit. She was able to build her momentum to the line. when she's in a race with a horse like Pride of Jenny running those really quick early sectionals, she's out of her comfort zone and probably doesn't quicken the same way. So for me, I think there's still a real question mark on her if she's heading to a Cox Plate and she's got a horse like Pride of Jenny in the race.
Yeah, an excellent point, because it's all about race shape for so many different horses, isn't it? And Pride of Jenny breaks horses. We've seen her undo many, many classy horses where they just can't go with her. They can't sustain that gallop, and it's working out where you sit your horse in a race with Pride of Jenny as well, so you're not out of your comfort zone. So do we see her ridden, further back so that she's not having to absorb that top end pressure that is put on by a horse like a Pride of Jenny? Or are we going to see her continually improve and, she gets to Cox Plate Day and she is, we've seen those, figure runs in the past where she hasn't been able to measure up in a race with high pressure tempo. Is that going to be her, and does she need a softer tempo and that's her race shape that she needs? Or is she going to be able to elevate off what she did yesterday? I think what it is doing is it's setting up for an excellent Cox Plate with so much intrigue.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's probably going to be the race of the spring down in Melbourne. Just touching on a couple of the beaten runners, Buckaroo, he tried hard, franked his form. What did you make of Alias stepping up to that type of quality race?
Yeah, I was impressed with Buckaroo first and foremost. I thought that he's one that I want to be now looking at for a Caulfield Cup. They're still talking with a lot of these horses. This is the big question mark. All the stables have big decisions to make, and that's whether they go on the Cup's path of the Caulfield Cup, Melbourne Cup, or where we see a rematch around the Valley. For a horse like Buckaroo, I tend to feel that the Cup's path is the better way to go, and both he and Elias are now equal favourites for the Caulfield Cup.
All right, Britt, what was your moment of the week? There are plenty to choose from.
My moment of the week goes to the steward's room, and it is when they said miss. Because I can't think of anything worse than riding your first Group 1 for poor Rhys Jones. You've celebrated, you're loving your big moment in the sun, and then all of a sudden you are having to defend your case. They definitely did come together, the horses, but I think they made the right decision. I don't think they could confidently overturn the result and say that it could have been upheld. But that's my moment of the week, to see that be dismissed, and there it is when Chris Waller shakes Rhys Jones' hand and say, well done, mate, your first Group 1.
Yeah, pretty awesome achievement there. Hey, thanks very much for your time, Britt. We do appreciate it. We'll chat to you again sometime soon, probably next week, about even more great Australian racing coming up.
Can't wait. Thanks, guys.
Britt Taylor there with us out of Australia. Right. There's a special day today because we have a new show. It's called Sunday Session. Pip Morris, welcome in. What can you tell us about what's coming up?
Pleasure to be along, Guy, I have to say. Well, we've got all three codes in play for our inaugural Sunday session. It's a bit more of a chill vibe. We've got Greg O'Connor on course at Methven as well. It's Methven Cup Day. Aidan Rodley's jumped in the car from Howrah and he's made his way to Awapuni as well for us for the Gallops Code. And as usual, of course, we've always got Monaco Greyhounds on a Sunday. So make sure you stick around after weigh-in, Guy. Are
we sure Aidan's well? I know he was dragged in by Alan, or he was talked about being dragged in by Alan Sherrick's celebrations yesterday, so I hope he's full noise today.
I might be on my own. Yes, hold the phone on that one, Guy.
All right, well, we look very much forward to that after weigh-in, of course. We're going to take a break here. When we come back, we are talking to the chairman of New Zealand Thoroughbred Racing, Russell Warwick, after the resignation of Chief Executive Bruce Sherrick during the week. Great to have you with us for weigh-in. Not too long to go, but a very important segment and interview coming up. We've obviously had all the racing throughout the week, and there was some great racing at that, but we had some big news as well with the resignation of New Zealand Thoroughbred Racing Chief Executive Bruce Sherrick. So joining us in studio live now is the chairman of NZTR, Russell Warwick. Russell, thanks for making the trip and seeing us in studio. Let's go back to when the announcement was made. I've got to be honest, I was quite surprised. How surprised were you about Bruce's news?
Yeah, look, we've been talking about it for the last week or two, and Bruce is, he's been an instrumental part of NZTR for a long period of time, and not only was he chief executive in recent years, but he was before that was on the board and had a very big part to play in bringing NZTR together from its new base in Cambridge, and a lot of the improvements that we've seen across the board in New Zealand racing comes down to a lot of what the board has driven and what Bruce and his team have been able to implement for New Zealand racing.
Okay, in terms of the timing around the announcement, I know there's a lot of questions circulating given what we saw happen at Hawke's Bay. Was that any reflection on what we saw with the result of the resignation? No, those discussions were going on before Hawke's Bay, Jane, and I guess I've only been there for 4 months, and we've had a few challenges in those 3 or 4 months. But look, that's the nature of the business at the end of the day, and NZTR is there to hopefully make the right decisions for the industry. Everything we do has got to be industry focused and what is the best outcome for the industry. And some of those decisions become harder than others, but we look to make sure that we get the best outcomes if possible. In terms of Bruce Sherrick and his tenure with NZTR, there's certainly a lot to unpack. In terms of what you think he brought to the table and what he's been able to do in the last couple of years, what do you think have been his biggest achievements in the role? Oh, look, Bruce has done a fantastic job in a number of areas, and different projects like the Avondale project. Bruce has been very much a part of that. The bringing together from Petone to Cambridge of our staff and our organisation to the hub of racing in the Waikato, and the respect that he's got amongst his team. He's had a wonderful way about him with his team. They all respect him, they work well together, and it's so refreshing walking into NZTR these days with young people invested in the industry and really a part of it, and they wear it on their sleeves, every day in and day out they live racing, and I think a lot of that's come down to the culture that Bruce has been able to drive within NZTR. There's no doubt he's been really popular in his role at NZTR. So the big question now is, how do you replace a man like Bruce Sherrick? Well, look, I think we all acknowledge our industry's evolving at the moment, and obviously with the introduction of Entain here now, I think change is imminent for all of us. I think we've got to look to raise the bar. I think we've got to get better at what we do, and at NZTR that we have to have that same feeling that best practice is what we've got to look to achieve now. Replacing a Bruce Sherrick won't be easy, but then it gives us the opportunity to look at our business structure and say, is there a better way of doing this going forward? Understanding the commercial ramifications as well as the racing knowledge that we have to have around us at NZTR. So that'll be a decision for the board in the coming months, and Bruce is here till the end of the year, and then he'll do some consultancy work for us. So we're not under any pressure to have to make a decision tomorrow as to how we're going to run our business. What does that role look like in terms of the consultancy? What will he be doing over that time before you appoint someone else? Well, that consultancy piece of the puzzle is really probably 4 things in total. It's 3 projects that we're working on at the moment, and the 4th one of those will hopefully be bidding in whoever is going to be his replacement. So Bruce is very much committed to doing those things and being a part of that going forward, and he has every interest in wanting to leave NZTR in a good place and in a better space. Obviously there's probably a decent pay packet out of it, who realistically would want this job? And the reason why I say that is because you've got abandonments and all that sort of stuff, you've got bickering between tracks, you've got all sorts of things going on behind the scenes. How do you attract people to take this job? Look, I guess it's the challenge of bringing things together, and it's a lot easier, I think, going forward in the next 2 or 3 years if we can get at the industry pulling together. And I think there's an old Henry Ford quote: if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. And I think we've got to get away from what we've done in the past. I think
traditionally and historically is something we should be very proud of, our history, but going forward we can't rely on our history and tradition to take us into the future. So I think we've got to look at what does the future look like, how do we focus on that, and that's something NZTR, every board meeting we're talking about with our team is about looking to the future. What does the next 2 years look like? And I think those are the exciting pieces of the puzzle, to be being a part of and involved in a situation where it's evolving and changing further.
So does that mean that you personally would be keen on someone a bit different to what's been in charge in the last few years or the last few iterations?
Look, I haven't made any. Don't have any thoughts on that. I think we've got an open mind, and I think where we've got to look at is probably look at our organisational chart and understand what we want to turn up out of NZTR. And look, NZTR 10 years ago or 20 years ago is quite a different beast to what it is today. And I think you see, the challenges we've got of animal welfare, of mental health with our participants. These are all our integrity. All of these things were never things that really sat on the table or for NZTR 20 years ago. And today we have to be aware of those. It's our social licence that we have that permits us to be able to conduct horse racing across New Zealand.
What does the ideal candidate look like, though? What are the qualities you're looking for in someone to take on that role?
Well, look, I think the commercial sense of where we're going now is what Bruce brought a lot of that to the table with his sports management group, but I think it's getting even more intense going forward. And then there's the racing piece of the puzzle. So some may say, well, okay, can you find that one person who's got an extensive racing background and a very high-level commercial background as well? And probably the answer to that is no. So we've got to look at how we structure our board to be able to provide the industry with those assets going forward.
Does that mean you might have to look outside New Zealand for that replacement?
Look, if that's about getting the best person, 100%. So if we can find the best person within New Zealand, that's great. If the best person is outside of New Zealand, we have to entertain that. And I think that's where we've got to look at the moment, is always remind ourselves 2 words, best practice. And we've got to come back to that every decision that we make. What is best practice for New Zealand thoroughbred racing?
I think we always have to have a positive outlook when looking at the industry. And as you mentioned, NZTR as an organisation has come a really long way in the last 10 years in terms of the progress it's made. But there are still a lot of issues that are facing the racing industry in New Zealand at the moment. In particular, tracks have been an enormous issue in the recent months. Hawke's Bay, what are some of the decisions that the team have sat down and spoken about with the track?
Look, we really feel for Hawke's Bay, and that wasn't an easy decision to come to, but to give clarity to our punters, to our stakeholders and to the broader public, we had to make a decision sooner rather than later. At the way the track was, we could have taken a punt and hoped like hell that on that Saturday when the Livermore Day was due to come, that the track would present well and racing would carry on. But obviously, with that recent happening on Arrowfield Day, it was you couldn't have that confidence, and we had to go with a decision that gave us that confidence. Personally, I think that Hawke's Bay is a strategic venue for New Zealand going forward. Now we have to get in with the club, understand what needs to be done, how can we affect that going forward, and make sure that Hawke's Bay can offer those facilities and track conditions that are going to attract the best horses and the best racing public.
Just very quickly, when do you want to have someone new in place?
Look, my view is that over the next month or 2 we will be talking about what that person looks like, drawing up a job description and then being able to go to market and to see what interest we have in the roles. But ideally before Christmas we'd like to think that we've sort of got it down to either a shortlist or appointed someone before there, with a view that that person after Christmas can come in through Bruce and his consultancy piece of the puzzle for NZTR, be bedded down into the role and get going into the new year.
Really appreciate you joining us this morning, Russell.
Thanks for having us.
New Zealand Thoroughbred Chairman, New Zealand Thoroughbred Racing Chairman Russell Warwick with us this morning. Well, as we always do on Weigh-In, we've got to give you our moments of the week. Jane, I'll start with you.
Oh, no doubt, Robbie Patterson and I guess the colours that we saw so prominent throughout the week with Team Burke. I thought it was a wonderful week for them, and that was certainly a highlight for me.
Mine was absolutely Donovan Mansour. Obviously lucky enough to spend some time with him for our story for Weigh-In, which you can catch on trackside.co.nz, winning on Mustang Valley yesterday. And we also need your Weight Watcher or your Black Booker.
Valderzoldo out of the Mustang Valley race yesterday at Tauranga. I thought that at the 400 metres he was travelling better than any other horse in the field in the Tony Pike colours. Very unlucky, didn't get a lot of room in the straight, so one to put a mark next to for next time.
Mine was Out of Focus, liked by Alan Sharrock and Leith Innes as well before the race. Almost clipped heels at the 600 and finished 5th. I thought it was a big run, and if Alan Sharrock was more confident in that runner than Teese, which won the race, then I'd say it's a good idea to stick with Out of Focus. That's all we've got time for here on Weigh-In this morning. Tomorrow night is the Guerin Report, and Mick has been in Singapore to see the last day of racing in Singapore. He has the big wash up from that and all the issues that come out of that. It might affect, well, here possibly. We will wait and see, but that's the Guerin Report tomorrow night. Thanks so much for joining us on Weigh-In this morning. We'll see you again next week.